Hi, today I'm going to talk about the way capitalist economic system affects the quality of healthcare. Here I'm going to talk about mental health care specifically, since I have years and years of experience of interacting with it. But 99% of what I say can be generalized to the rest of the system. The problems I mention here are not unique to mental health. So I'm going to delve into the ways the drug industry interacts with healthcare professionals and organizations. I'm going to look at the problems that arise from these interactions and offer some possible solutions. This video is going to be kind of lengthy, so there are some time codes for you in the description. So let me start with why I want to discuss this topic in the first place. I've struggled with severe treatment-resistant psychotic depression that took everything away from me for many years. Mainstream medicine not only failed to help me, but on top of that, the side effects of the medications caused organ damage. It took me 2 years to heal from it. After that, I started doing a lot of my own reading, and I found out that there are a lot of studies out there about natural treatments of depression. Some of these treatments really helped me, and I'm 90% healthy right now, and I didn't experience any side effects. I'll put a link to my full story in the description if you're interested. After all of that, I was really mad about the fact that the best doctors of my country don't know and didn't tell me anything about the existence of safe and effective natural ways to treat depression that are scientifically proven to work. If any of the doctors had told me about these treatments when I first asked for their help, that would have saved me years and years of horrible suicidal suffering. And I'm not the only one. I can bet anything that I'm not the exception, I'm the rule. I personally know several people with depression and bipolar disorder who benefited from safe natural treatments. Some of them successfully went off their medications completely. Some of them were able to lower the dosage of the prescription meds significantly. Side effects are always dose dependent, so just lowering the dosage can change someone's life. All of that is especially important for people with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, because the side effects of bipolar and schizophrenia meds are usually much worse than the side effects of antidepressants. Antipsychotics not only make you feel terrible, they actually shorten your lifespan by 15 to 25 years. That's insane. Trying out natural treatments that are scientifically proven to work is extremely important for these people. Yet you will almost never get any information about it from your psychiatrist. This whole situation has nothing to do with doctors being negligent on the job or with not paying attention at school. The doctors have never been taught about the alternatives to begin with. The current situation is the result of poorly regulated capitalist system we have in place, where pharmaceutical corporations have way too much power over other branches of the healthcare system. So today I'm going to look closely on the most problematic interactions the big pharma has with healthcare professionals and organizations, and what can we do to fix this situation. Quick side note, I'm not against man-made medications altogether. I just want to have a system where all the treatment options have equal opportunity to be researched and prescribed to patients, a system that prioritizes patients' health over profit. A lot of the information I use in this video is based on the project called Shedding Light. This project is run by a European non-governmental organization called Mental Health Europe, committed to improving the various aspects of mental health care. If you want to read the full Shedding Light report, the link will be in the description below. So let's look into the most problematic interactions between profit-driven capitalist pharmaceutical corporations and healthcare professionals and organizations. First thing I want to discuss is the improper influence of Big Pharma on clinical practice guidelines. Currently, high-profile doctors that make decisions on what clinical practice guidelines should be are allowed by law to take money from Big Pharma, and to make matters worse, in many countries they don't even have to disclose it. I'll give you a quote from the Shedding Light report. Clinical practice guidelines are very often developed by respected and high-profile experts that pharmaceutical industry actively seeks to serve as key opinion leaders. Many of these receive payments of which consistent sums are undisclosed. End of quote. And now I'll give you a quick example from my life when doctors' recommendations went against the existing science. In 1999, a study was conducted where the efficacy of exercise relative to SSRI sertraline in treating depression was investigated. The study showed that in short-term exercise is just as effective as the drug, and in long-term exercise is much better than sertraline. It's also obvious that exercise is much safer. And yet, when I was diagnosed with depression, the doctors were very quick to prescribe the medications, and sertraline was one of the drugs I was prescribed, and none of the doctors have ever mentioned anything about exercise. And that's just one little example. I can give you many more if I want to. These examples show us that clinical guidelines can go against the existing science. Allowing the doctors who make the key decisions to take money from Big Pharma is one of the reasons for the over-reliance on medication in psychiatry. Now let's look at how the industry might influence research results. When the pharmaceutical companies fund the research, they have a final say when it comes to making it public. Basically, they are allowed to prohibit the publication of the research paper if the results are negative or unfavorable. That's not good, obviously. The doctors and the public need to know all the available information to make optimal decisions. Another form of bias in research reporting is the exaggeration of positive results in a clinical trial in the conclusion of a scientific paper compared to the findings shown throughout the article. Research sponsored by pharmaceutical companies shows the results favoring drug manufacturers more often than research without the participation of pharmaceutical companies. There's also a thing called ghostwriting, where independent doctors sign on as authors of studies conducted and written by pharmaceutical companies. All of that is hideous and has to stop. Okay, so another problematic area of interactions between pharmaceutical corporations and healthcare professionals is marketing. The corporations do not advertise the prescription drugs directly to consumers for obvious reasons. They advertise their product to doctors, and oftentimes the information on medication is not accurate. I'll give you a quote from the Shedding Light report. Pharmaceutical representatives might spread exaggerated assertions about the safe use of a certain medication and inform healthcare professionals inaccurately about certain therapies, in a way that is favorable to drug producers. Such practices were, for instance, documented during the recent opioid crisis in the United States. Some companies were sued and had to pay fines because their pharmaceutical representatives were wrongfully informed healthcare professionals about addictive characteristics of certain drugs. End of quote. So, pharma sales reps can lie. I don't think that anybody is surprised by that. There's a research that shows that interacting with drug representatives is known to affect doctors' prescribing habits and can even lead to irrational prescribing of brand's drug. I'll put a link to it in the description. Another thing I want to mention here is Big Pharma's enormous marketing budgets. In 2017, in the UK, pharma companies paid 148 million euros to healthcare professionals and organizations. This does not include research and development activities. In US, this number rises to billions of dollars a year. Billions with a B. Very often marketing budgets are bigger than research and development budgets. You see, in a system that works properly, where the prescribing decisions are based on science, a good drug doesn't need any advertisement. It's going to become popular because it proved to be superior in clinical trials. But the system that is in place right now clearly doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, we live in a world where these insane advertising budgets are justified. Okay, so the fourth problematic interaction I want to point out today is involvement of Big Pharma in medical education. Drug companies pour millions of dollars into medical schools. Their involvement may include anything from gift giving to using textbooks written by drug companies to receiving their education directly from representatives of these drug companies. You heard me right. A lot of the time medical students are taught by people who have vested interest in promoting certain treatments over others. This is absolutely unacceptable and should be illegal, but it isn't. Let's also address the continued medical education. In many countries, attending a certain number of continued medical education courses is a condition for maintaining a license or a right to practice. A large part of the available courses is funded and organized by the pharmaceutical industry. So, same here. It's unacceptable. All the continued medical education should be provided by people who don't have a conflict of interest. The problems I've mentioned I consider to be the main ones, but they are not the only ones. There's many more. Some of it has to do with financial influence these corporations have on politicians in certain countries. After all, the legislation is created by politicians, not corporations. If it's legal, like in the United States, it's called lobbying. If it's illegal, it's called corruption. Both are happening, and I find both to be incredibly harmful. But it's not just corruption. It's also the lack of awareness about these problems and a lack of pushback from society. The situation that I described above creates an uneven playing field for different treatment options depending on how profitable they are. Drug producers have both the incentive and the means to make the system work in their favor by advertising drugs to doctors, by being involved in research, by influencing the education, by giving money to politicians and most influential doctors, and so on. They spend billions of dollars on that every year, and it works. Producers of natural supplements do not have the incentive to do the same because they cannot patent their product. Things like exercise, meditation, and going out to get sunlight don't even have producers. In a profit-driven free market system, you need to sell things as much as possible, and at the same time, some of the best treatments for mental health problems are difficult or impossible to sell. And that's why I think that this system and proper mental health care do not work well together. Free market, profit-driven system works well with clothing industry, with furniture industry, and with many others, but not with healthcare. Before I get to my solutions, I want to point out where the conversation about this problem is today. The undue influence of corporations on healthcare system is acknowledged by many people and organizations. And the discussion right now mainly centers around the issue of transparency. Transparency advocates propose to oblige healthcare professionals and organizations to disclose any of their cooperation with corporations, to make it publicly available and accessible to anybody. The drug companies obviously say that the disclosure of cooperation should be voluntary. That's where the conversation is at this point, and it makes me really mad. First of all, of course, such cooperations should be fully transparent. And second, it's not nearly enough. It's a tiny thing and it's not going to fix everything. It's not going to get to the core of the problem. We have to think bigger. So in the next part of this video, I'm going to describe a couple of solutions I have in mind. The pharmaceutical industry has got to be either heavily regulated or nationalized altogether, and I want to discuss both approaches with you. If drug industry stays in private hands, then there's got to be serious changes made to the way the system functions. First of all, it's important to take big pharma money out of politics. Politicians set the rules here. They should serve people, not corporations. Lobbying should be outlawed, corruption should be eradicated. Whether it's ever going to be realistically possible is a separate conversation, and I'm not going to get into that right now. Number 2, we should stop allowing advertising drugs to doctors. Not only this is completely unnecessary, it's actually really harmful for several reasons. Advertising done by the drug industry might spread inaccurate information about medications. Second, it gives the unfair advantage to monetizable treatments. Doctors should learn about the latest developments in their field from independent, continued medical education, not from pharma sales reps. Number 3. There should be full transparency about all cooperations with the industry. Number 4. People who are involved in creating treatment guidelines or education should not be influenced by pharmaceutical corporations in any way. It's maddening that this is not required right now. These people should be well compensated to make it less necessary to enter into potentially compromising relationships with the pharmaceutical industry. Number 5. There should also be plenty of independent funding for research. Number 6. There's got to be an additional tax for the pharmaceutical and medical device industries, and that money should go directly to create all of that independent funding the healthcare system needs to function properly. The drug industry is very profitable. Sick people are the source of their income. The industry should pay their fair share to make sure the system has patients' best interests in mind. I find these changes to be absolutely necessary. It is the bare minimum. We need to just hope to have a system that prioritizes patients' well-being over profit. A system that provides equal opportunity to all treatments, regardless of how profitable they are. However, I find nationalizing the pharmaceutical industry entirely to be a better solution. Regulations do not eliminate the core of the problem. With capitalist system, the difference in profit between different branches of the healthcare system creates the power imbalance between big pharma and everybody else. And I'm afraid that no matter how much we try to regulate this system, big money might find its way to doctors, educators, researchers, and politicians. Regulations might be loosened at any time. The law might be broken. It has happened already many times. And I also find it unfair that the huge costs of the properly functioning mental health care system are socialized. I'm talking about disability checks, much needed independent research, education, and many other very costly things. But the enormous profit from selling the medications is privatized. In case of nationalization, the profit from selling the medications can go back into the system to sustain it. The scientists that are able to find a safe and effective treatment can receive a generous reward regardless of how monetizable that treatment is. It will also take some burden off of the taxpayers. We need our healthcare system to care about patients, not profits. And this is not possible without providing equal opportunity for all the treatment options. I fully realize just how difficult it is to achieve the nationalization of pharmacological and medical device industries. Our society is so ideologically blocked that very often we cannot see the reality of the situation. And the reality is not black and white. Reality always has details and nuances that need to be taken into account. I am not in favor of nationalizing all the industries. It is a disastrous idea to concentrate that much power in the hands of the government. The history of Soviet Union confirms that. But profit-driven free market system is not perfect either. It fails us sometimes. And overmedicalization of mental health patients is a clear result of that failure. We need to be able to see the situation for what it is. See all the details and nuances instead of fighting the ideological wars all the time. In the last part of this video, I want to deal with the most popular objections to nationalization, which are: we need capitalism to have innovation, and it's bad for economy. First, let's talk about innovation. We've all heard a lot of times that free market is great for innovation, and there is some truth to that. Generally speaking, competitive environment pushes people to create new, better ways of doing things. But there's also an important nuance here. Capitalism adds the requirement of profitability. And it's a big problem in some industries. If something is more profitable, it doesn't automatically mean it's better for the world. This problem pops up in many industries and in healthcare especially. As I've told you earlier, sometimes the best treatments are difficult or impossible to sell, which means that the requirement of profitability is going to stand in the way of finding new, better and safer treatments. Also, research done by a party with vested interest is problematic. I've already told you why that is earlier. Most of research has to be funded by government anyway, regardless of the economic system. Innovation has always been a part of human history. It's not going anywhere. Plus, if we redirect the huge amounts of money that are currently spent on useless and harmful advertising to independent research and development, we might actually enhance innovation. Now, let's talk about the effect nationalization of drug companies might have on the economy. I have a quick example for you. Let's look at the disease that is the leading cause of disability worldwide. It's depression. Depression makes more people disabled than any other existing disease. Just think about that for a moment. That means enormous amount of people are so sick that they are unable to work. They do not contribute anything to the economy. Their living expenses and their medication costs are paid by the taxpayers. That is a huge burden on the taxpayers and the economy as a whole. The only winner in the current situation is the drug industry. Disabled people still take the meds. The taxpayers are paying for them. So the industry still gets its profit. The gains are privatized, the losses are socialized. I myself was disabled after I had tried everything the doctors had to offer. I wasn't able to work or study at that point, and it turned out that the science had the answers to cure me. But the doctors didn't know anything about them because our healthcare system cares much more about profits than about patients' health. And I'm not the exception. If we give all the treatments equal opportunity to be researched and prescribed, we can cure a lot more people, not just from depression, from all the other illnesses also. And healthy people are much better for the economy. They work, they contribute to society, and they don't need taxpayers' financial help. And even if it is bad for the economy, it's not really, but for the sake of the argument, let's assume that it is. I don't care. I really don't care. It is wrong and immoral to not offer the best possible treatment to the patients just for financial gain. Healthcare system should care about people's health first and foremost. Our lack of awareness about problems in healthcare system and our silence allows the current situation to continue. I fully realize how difficult it is to achieve that kind of change. But we need to start somewhere. If you want to help spread the word about all of it, please share this video or maybe make your own video about this. And if enough people push for change, it will come. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Push the like button and subscribe. It's free for you, but it will really help my channel. Thank you for listening. See you next time.